Hey, everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of Miller's Military Moments. I'm your host, Jason Miller, Master Sergeant Retired. And today, this is a military transition episode, tips, resources, story, whatever you want to call it. But today we've got a really awesome guest on our show. Michelle Schopp has decided to join us and share her transition story. We've already heard from several of our teammates out there, one Air Force, and a few Army out there. And this is our first Coastie. Is that correct? Is that right, Michelle?
Yes.
All right. So we've got our first Coastie. She's retired from the Coast Guard, and she's going to share, some of her tips and resources, some of the timelines that she went on when she was talking about and thinking about, retiring and getting out of the Coast Guard, and some of the challenges that she met and overcame. And she retired about a year ago, so September 1st, 2020. So she's had some time out and definitely has some interesting challenges during that time that I'm so happy she's come on the show to share. So thanks, Michelle, for joining us today and sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, we are too. Everybody's probably so excited they heard Coast Guard. They're like, oh, there really is somebody from the Coast Guard. Like, I got to listen to this one. So y'all are like the unicorn, like, do y'all really exist? No. And it's just, it's fun jealousy because, y'all sometimes get some really cool places. And the Army over here, where, in Kuwait or Afghanistan or, Fort Polk, Louisiana, love you Cajuns, but, so no, it's really cool. And I think, you had some challenges, and you mentioned, you said earlier, in the pre-show, like, I can't be the only one, which is true. You're not the only one. And that is what's really great about this platform, this opportunity for us to pay it forward, to really help other people that have gone through or are going through these issues, or if they happen to come across them, maybe they can hear your story and be like, oh yeah, that's how she did it. Or, you know what, I need to contact Michelle and find out how, she got through this. So yeah, so it's really awesome having you here today. It's really cool.
Well, I am excited to be here. And I will mention that we do have some of our ships are over in the Middle East. And in fact, one of our larger cutters, I think, just entered I'm going to say this wrong because I haven't been keeping up as much, but I think they just entered the South China Sea.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're over there. We're just small.
Yeah. And I remember, and in fact, I think when I've been in Kuwait, I think I've seen a couple of the ships there around the port, doing stuff. But yeah, it was South China Sea. I mean, that's a lot of stuff going on over there for sure. So they definitely need to keep their heads on a swivel and be safe. So, but that's cool. No, we all love our Coast Guard, for sure. And then the only time we say anything negative, it's only because we're jealous, so. But so you've been retired about a year, and so where are you now? And then we'll kind of backtrack to how you got here in your transition, because you've got a unique set of circumstances that kind of pointed you in this direction here. So where are you at now, and what are you doing? Is it anything close to what you thought you'd be doing?
So to answer your last question, no. So far from what I thought I was going to be doing, but I'm currently the community outreach coordinator for the local Wild Birds Unlimited retail nature shop here in Yorktown, Virginia. I'm also a sales associate, so I work the floor, and then I'm responsible for the trainings, educational outreach, different presentations and talks, a little bit of business development, bringing in different customer base to the store. And then something that's unique to our store is we also have, where we're located physically, we've got a nice sort of wooded area adjacent to the unit that we're in. And so last year I established a pollinator garden on site. And then we, myself and the owners, have put in a learning trail through the wooded area. So it's just a really cool spot for folks to come and see. We're focused on native plants and shrubs and things like that are going to bring in more wildlife. And so So that's where I am now.
I mean, that is really cool. Like, I mean, I think that's awesome. You know, I mean, I'm excited for you because you seem like, I mean, you're smiling, you're excited about it, you know, and I'm thinking probably there's a lot of people thinking, oh gosh, I want to do that when I retire. You know, like, how did she know how to do that?
Yeah.
So, which is, you're going to tell us that because I think it's a great part of the transition that a lot of people can learn a great lesson to how you got there. Because trust me, I love it. I mean, I love what you're doing. You are passionate about it. You know, you're happy about it. It's, you know, you're not in the rat race.
Yeah.
But you know, hey, you're in Yorktown. So you didn't take that 125,000 plus job in the DC DOD
No.
area. You're doing
Nope.
something that you totally love. And it must have been on your radar 2 years before you were retiring. And that's what you were going to do, right?
No. If you,
No.
I mean, I didn't even expect to be doing this, you know, last fall.
Right. Okay.
So,
So last fall.
yeah.
Well, all right. Well, let's, you know, and so one thing I want to say before we kind of back up is, and I may be jumping the gun on part of your story here, but I think this is important, you know, for people to know is that and understand, because we want people to our team, we want our teammates to think about the financial side, you know, of retirement, or, you know, even if it's just getting out after your current contract or whatever the case is think about what you need to do to create that financial flexibility so that you can do what it is that you want to do.
Right.
Versus needing to take, you know, that really high paying job at high stress. And now you're gone all the time again. And, you know, because what we do in the military can oftentimes be really stressful. And, you know, we probably need to have some type of break. So,
Yes.
you and your husband, your family, y'all put yourself in a position to where you could do this when the opportunity presented itself. And I think that's really key for people to know, and to know that it's possible. You know, others can do it too with some forethought and some discipline. So,
Yeah.
some forethought, discipline, and just asking, right? If you don't know about financial vehicles or just planning or anything like that, you know, I learned this new phrase from Luke the other day on his show when I had him on, and he says, man, sometimes it's best to be the dumbest person in the room, because you ask, if when you don't know anything, you tend to ask a whole lot more questions, right?
Right.
And then you can actually learn something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's back up to, you know, even a couple years ago, a few years ago, and you're like, okay, so I'm thinking about retiring. You know, this is where we're going to retire at. Some things kind of worked out to where you're at that location. You know, how early were y'all really kind of starting to think about those things and plan for that thought process?
So I would say it was probably about 3 years before I was retirement eligible. So I did almost 22 years because my anniversary date was the 2nd of November. So of course I would have had to stay till 1 December, or, you know, the end of November in order to, so I left in September. And so it's just shy of 22 years. And so probably 2015, I would say. Yeah, that's about right. 2015 is when I started kind of really thinking about it. And I will tell you, you probably experienced this as well. Anytime, you know, when you're getting close to that 20-year mark and you start mentioning retirement to other people, you know, the comments are, oh no, you're gonna be in for a long time. Oh, don't start thinking about that yet, you know. So my supervisor at the time, John Dittmar, I reluctantly told him, you know, I think after, you know, this next tour, wherever it may be, because we didn't know obviously yet where we were going to go. I said, I think I'm going to retire. And instead of giving me the, you know, no, you're not, you know, kind of conversation, he said, okay. He's like, well, this is what you need to do. And, you know, my evaluation session turned into sort of a mentoring session of, you know, let's get you into TAPS. Let's do this, let's do that. And I told him later that I was super grateful for that, because no one had ever entertained that conversation with me until that point. And once it was almost like he opened the door and then, and when I shared that with him, how that made me feel, he said, he's like, whether you leave tomorrow or you leave 10 years from now, I'm still going to expect the same work ethic. And, my expectations are going to be the same until the day you leave. And that made me feel really good, because that was what I was afraid of, was that once I started talking about retirement, people were going to kind of just, discount anything that I had to say or anything like that. So sort of a leadership lesson for anybody listening. Don't discount your folks, when they make that decision. So anyhow, so I ended up that year going to TAPS, my first TAPS, which I think now is TGPS, whatever they're calling it these days. So I went, and, I'm sort of a lifelong learner. So I, soaked everything in that I could. I had the opportunity actually to take an extra, it was a half day class on social media and how to use social media in the, granted this was, 6 years ago, so things have changed a lot, but
Right.
it was my first introduction to LinkedIn. And so it was a really, great opportunity to kind of just, where I had time to just focus on those things and do that. So I did that. And then probably, and at that same time I was working on my master's. And so I was finishing up that stuff and kind of starting to really just look at what life after the Coast Guard could look like. And then I ended up, there was an opportunity for a transition workshop, a 2-day transition workshop through an organization called Mission Getting to Next. I don't think that they're operating anymore, but what it was they would take 12 high profile civilian women and 12 military women and put them in a room together for 2 days. And basically it was like speed dating on crack. You were just sort of like, they throw things at you, and you'd have to like think quickly and not overanalyze things and stuff. One of the best exercises they gave us, I'll share this because I think it's helpful, is we had to do introductions right from the get-go. We had to do introductions, and they said, okay, we want you to write, when you stand up to introduce yourself, you're going to say, I'm whoever you are. I used to be, and that was kind of like what you do now. And then, but now I'm this, and fill in the blank. And so it could be anything, it didn't have to be like realistic, you could say, and now I'm an astronaut, or something like that. So of course, like I'm like sitting there like stressing, like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to, figure this out? Because they only gave us like 2 minutes to put this together. And but it was a really great exercise, because what I found interesting, and a lot of them, the feedback they gave us was that, so I said, I used to be a maritime inspector and investigator, training international maritime officers within the Coast Guard, and now I am a advocate for United Nations environmental and sustainable development goals, working with youth to become, and all this, I had this really great pitch, and they all were like, wow, like when you said that, you said it so smoothly, and your face lit up when you said that, and so it's in what I found interesting about that exercise is that, when you say things, like you put it out there in the universe or whatever you believe in, you put it out there and other people hear it. And now all those people are going to hold you to that, one way or the other. And so, when you keep things inside, a lot of times you don't hold yourself to those things. And so when you tell other people about it, then, you feel obligated to kind of at least follow through with some of it. But anyhow, so I did that workshop. It was really great. I actually almost didn't go to it because I was so far out from retirement. I didn't think that I felt so. So this is an interesting sort of self-reflection thing. I said to the woman, I said, well, I don't want to take the spot from someone else who might need it more. And she said, why don't you need it more? And so so I went, and it was amazing. And, I learned how to network, which I was terrified of doing. I'd never, had to, our careers, they tell us where we're going, who we're going to talk to, what we're going to do. We don't really have to do that for ourselves. So I met some really amazing women. One of my sort of cohort mates, if you will, was Carolyn Johnson, who wrote Jet Girl. And I don't know if you're familiar with that book. She was one of the first female, I think, gosh, I'm going to butcher this so bad. I think F-18 pilots to go into Syria. She wrote a book about her time, and that was her, like, now I am New York Times bestselling author, and she is now, so
that's cool.
So anyhow, if you haven't read that book, there's a plug for Jet Girl.
There you go. Definitely. I'll add it to my list for sure.
Yeah. But anyhow, so I did that. And then that sort of started this, for the next few years, started this sort of networking thing that, something I was so terrified of. I realized like how fun it was to just meet people and to learn what they do. Because we get so, I think we're kind of sometimes get trapped in this bubble of, just who we know and what everybody does. And I think one of the biggest things for me was sort of breaking out of that bubble and networking with people outside of, our military family, and learning about the different opportunities that are out there that we would have never dreamed of, kind of looking at. So I got involved in a lot of different organizations and went to a lot of different networking events, and went to TAPS again. And actually I was scheduled to do a third TAPS just before I retired. Because I feel like, a lot of people kind of, stick their noses up to TAPS. And I know in some places it's not delivered as well as others, but I learned something new from every single one of the times that I went. I was disappointed actually that I didn't get to go a third time, just because I knew that there was going to be some extra stuff that I could either or fine tune my resume, or whatever, just different things. So that's a recommendation. Like, go as many times as you can to TAPS, and go to different places. So I did one with the Air Force. So I did my first one at Langley. I did my second one at Fort Eustis with the Army. And you hear different stories, you hear different things. And then as time got closer, so I'd say, once I realized that I was probably going to stay in, to finish out, at my 20-year or 21-year mark, I started kind of looking to put some other things in place. And my last job kind of, one thing with the Coast Guard that I think is a little bit unique from the other services is that by nature of what we do, we're constantly engaging with the public. So we're, we see a lot of different opportunities right in front of us by the work that we do every day, because we're working with industry. And so, so sometimes, you think, oh, well, and a lot of times too, industry, what they'll do is they'll dangle a carrot in front of somebody and then they leave and go work for, we say go work for the enemy,
Right.
But yeah, so, and I've known a lot of great folks to do that. And especially in the field that I was in, but, so we, we're already kind of making those connections and stuff throughout our entire careers. But, one of the sort of last organizations that I got involved with before I retired was the Society of American Military Engineers, which I am not an engineer. But my husband and I both actually joined them. And I encourage anybody, who hasn't heard of them to take a look at that organization. They're really good at networking, and it is predominantly, sort of the civil engineering field, but what it did for us is it was a great networking opportunity. My husband was able to get connected with someone who eventually then hired him And then that was how I got connected with the consulting firm that I'm on call with now. So for both of us, we agree that it was a win-win situation, so as so that now I'm trying to kind of fast forward a little
No,
bit.
it's okay. That's great. And I was kind of letting you go a little bit because I just
Sure,
wanted
yeah.
you to no, I wanted you to keep your rhythm and thought. I mean, you're great. I mean, it's those, everything that transpired and that you utilized was really awesome. And I just want to go back to the leader that said, okay, well, we need to get you into TAPS and that kind of stuff. That is an excellent point. And it doesn't happen very often, and less often in the Army. I'll tell you that. As soon as I started talking about retirement, I was blackballed, pushed out to the pasture. Nobody, wanted me on their team anymore, so to speak. Like, I was like, really? Like, that's what this has come down to, all because, and then some people even tried to get me to try to get our human resources command to move me to a different location.
Wow.
Which would have delayed my retirement because you have to be
gosh.
because you have to be on station so long before you can even retire. I'm like, what are y'all doing? So
Trickery.
leaders
Yeah.
learn from this right here. Absolutely. And I want to mention the TAPS thing too, because you said, some people thumb their noses up at it. Absolutely. There's such a negative feeling and emotion around TAPS, and especially in the Army. There's several reasons for it, and I won't get into all of those. One of the reasons in the Army is that we are still getting people in it too late. So they're literally just checking the blocks and they're rushed through. But if you can get it in the right time when you're supposed to be, you can learn something from anything, right?
Right.
So if you go into it with that mindset and quit listening to the negative Nancy's over there, just be like, listen, I'm just going to go in, I'm going to see what they have to say and see if I can learn something that's beneficial. Or do what you've been talking about. I've heard the word several times, networking.
Yeah.
Meet somebody even in that group that you just never know, who you could get connected to and network through. And I think the stats are pretty telling out there. It's like 80% of all jobs right now, you get hired because either a direct referral or somebody that knows you in the company.
Exactly.
You're not getting through applicant tracking system with your resume. I'm telling you.
No.
I mean, that. Like, it's so so that's important. So give the TAPS classes a chance. And then the other key part about what you just said is start as early as possible. Don't wait, don't wait till your 24-month mark or your 12-month mark. Like, you can go as early as you want. And unfortunately, so for example, mine were last November and I was signing out in April. So there was, not a whole lot of time. And some people that were in a couple of my classes were getting out in December. I was like, what? So those are the people that unfortunately do whatever they can when they get out, try to find a job. Like they haven't, been able to network. So, and then the last thing I'll mention, and then we'll get right back into you is so any of these resources that you talk about in that mentoring group, I'll get the links to, and I'll put them on my website. So under your show, I'll have a blog post for your show, and then I'll have all the links for anything that you mentioned in the show today, so that our listeners can go and check it out.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. One of the things too, that first sort of transitioning conference I went to, which again was not military. I mean, they brought military women in, but I paid out of pocket for that, which I considered an investment. And there's a quote somewhere, and I don't know who it was by, and I apologize if whoever it was by is listening to this, but it said something along the lines of, when you invest in yourself, others start to invest in you. And so I've done a lot of investing in myself. And I know that a lot of people don't have the ability to do that. And that's okay. And there's a lot of resources out there for you. But there were things I really wanted to kind of try and do for myself that the military was not going to, cover, or the free resources just weren't kind of hitting it for me. So, during this workshop, this 2-day conference workshop, whatever you want to call it, they brought in this group called One-to-One Women, which is a coaching group, a coaching company organization. They're a nonprofit. And anyway, what they ended up doing is I signed up for career or life coaching, which I know sounds super hippy dippy to some people. And I'm, fine with being hippy dippy, but, I'll take whatever I can get, all avenues. And so I paid for coaching through this program, and the proceeds, so if you end up paying for it, and they do a sliding scale for the rate, but if you can't pay for it, they have things in place where they'll still be able to do the coaching for you. There's different sort of scholarships and things available for folks. So, and that's what, when I paid for it, that's what it went towards. But so I had this life coach, and it was amazing. And so if I encourage folks, if they have the ability to do it or can find, someone, because what she did was she really made me think outside the box. And that was, I think, really when I started to look at what it was I wanted to do. And she helped me sort of understand what my value was and what I could bring to the table. She ran me through some interesting exercises as well. So one of them was, they were sort of like mock interview questions, and it could be anything, but you could do it on paper, you could do it, with another person, whatever the case may be. But basically, a typical interview question. And I had to answer the question without using any military terminology, which on the fly was super hard.
Oh yeah, definitely hard.
So, I challenge everybody to give that a try, because it really makes you think hard about what you're doing. And then as you're saying it, you realize, oh, wow, that sounds really, and I know you've talked about it with past shows, get rid of the military jargon and that sort of thing. And it was a really helpful
exercise.
Yeah. So, and then she kind of taught me about hard skills versus soft skills, and the sort of trifecta of the sweet spot, when you've got the hard skills and the soft skills, and then you're a good fit, that's really the sweet spot for employers and stuff. So anyhow, it was great. And I have an old colleague of mine who, we had a lot of chats. He owns his own coaching company too, which I'll put a plug in for him. His name's Phil Pinto, and he runs Pinto Leadership. He said, if you mention this podcast, he does do a military discount, and if you mention this podcast, he'll give you $25 off any of the coaching packages that he offers. So
awesome.
Anyway,
awesome.
So the moral of the story is the coaching is good. If you can get in there and do it, because again, it, all those sort of funky leadership things that they make us do in some of our leadership classes and stuff, they what the coaching does is kind of take it to a whole new level and really makes you kind of look inward. What are your hobbies? Well, that could potentially be your next job. I know you talk a lot about the paintball park that you're going to start, so it's not something to, we joke and we laugh about it, but honestly, those are the things that you're passionate about. And they say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, kind of thing. So, but
absolutely. I want to mention, just really a couple things. So when it comes to mentors and, life coaches and stuff, so American Corporate Partners is another really good one.
Yes.
And then, so people can go on and fill out your profile, and it's all free, and you can get, a mentor, and they have a pretty extensive program. I actually went through two, because the first one wasn't for me. And then the second one wasn't for me only because we couldn't connect. She actually couldn't meet her commitment and kept rescheduling. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this. So, but you also have to have the power to say no. Or willingness to say no, because you have the power if something's not working in that relationship. And ACP, American Corporate Partners, is great. for that. So that's another resource for you. And then I will, again, I'll get your resources that you've used on there too.
Yeah.
And it's so important to go through these exercises because many people, especially in the Army, listen, or military, I mean, we love our military people, but we will get overconfident and arrogant in certain areas. Like, oh, I know I can say that, or I can do all these things, and you don't practice it and you don't, prepare. Right. And then you walk in there and you jack it all up. And then all of a sudden you can't say it. And so the exercises that you're talking about are really important to do. And the other side of all of this is I want to just mention work and effort. So you're putting in the work, you're putting in the effort for your transition. And I'm going to throw a plug for Herb Thompson. I mean, big Herb's on LinkedIn. Yeah, he's awesome. I mean, wrote The Transition Mission. That was my very first book that I read for when it came to transitioning. And he says, own your journey. Mm-hmm. You've got to own it. I mean, I had a rough transition as far as like support from my organization, but I still made it happen. Like I didn't allow them to dictate to me, that I couldn't do certain things. I made it happen. So you just have to own it. Yep. And that's what you're doing. You're working through it. You're actually putting an effort to get better at these things. And the military jargon will get you in a heartbeat. Oh, yeah. People will not know what you're talking about. And then the other part is our value. You said it, like, what value do I bring? Like, and this coach or mentor or whoever it is that understands the civilian sector better than we do will probably have 10 jobs lined up for you that you will bring value to these things. And you're going to look at them like, right. Oh, what? I could do that. And yes, you can. So get these mentors, do the informational interviews, think outside the box, be prepared to do something you had no idea you would do, but be confident in it once you put in the work to understand how your skills relate to it. Yeah.
And I will say too, one of the things coming out of that workshop, and again, I was still pretty early on. At that point, I think I was still like 3 to 4 years out from when I actually ended up retiring. So I sort of made a promise to myself that I would try to set aside 2 hours a week for networking, whether it was returning emails or, one of the most important things I found was if I met somebody and they gave me their business card, as soon as I got home that day, I'd send an email and try to remember one thing they said that I found interesting and write that in the email back to them. Like, hey, it was really great to meet you earlier today. Thank you so much for telling me about such and such. Please keep in touch. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, or something along those lines. So that was one of the things. And then, I just had a brain fart. I was going somewhere with this.
That's okay. So it's really important to, we think of, I don't want people to think of it as massaging their ego.
Right.
But listen, they have something you want and need, whether it's a connection, a network, a job, or whatever. Right. So we, as the mentees or whatever you want to call it, we do need to make that extra effort and send that email and say, hey, thanks, and then when you put that one little part about what you remembered, it shows them you were listening and you cared. So it's a big deal.
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember now what I was going to say too, is that, when you start early enough, and you sort of start doing this work, it's not stressful because it's fun. You're just asking questions. You're learning about what other people do, and you're sharing, because most of the time when you're talking to people outside of our military bubble, they want to know like we say C stories. They want to know your stories. They want to know like, oh, what's the coolest thing you ever did, or whatever. And so you just sort of like have conversations with people. And then that way, when the time does come, when it's down to the wire, those people that you've been connecting with, you can say, hey, I'm about 6 months out and thinking about going this route or whatever, what are your thoughts? And they'll be like, oh, you need to talk to this person. And I will tell you, at least for me, it got a little overwhelming at times. And it came in waves because I'd go to like an event. I got really heavily involved with the local chamber of commerce. They love military. So if you've got a local chamber of commerce nearby, start going to the events and stuff. But anyhow, they all, especially here in the Hampton Roads area, like they always are like, oh, we want to hire veterans. We want to, come on in, oh, I know this person, and it's okay to not be interested in what that person is like. Say you get introduced to someone and you really have no interest in that particular type of work, but you can still be professional and hear what they have to say. And it's okay to just say, hey, I appreciate it. And, thanks for reaching out or whatever. Let's stay in touch or, something along those lines. They're not gonna, you're not gonna hurt their feelings, but, it's just that sort of professional courtesy. Cause there's tons of people that I came in contact with, and it was more just connecting. There wasn't, they weren't going to get anything from me. I wasn't going to get anything from them, necessarily from a professional standpoint, but you just never know too, like down
Absolutely.
the road, what, that person, who that person knows, and so, yeah, if you get the opportunity to do it early, do it, because, people will notice, like, if you start to be very comfortable in those settings. And I find that I'm more comfortable when I go by myself, which is really odd because I was always the kid in school, like who was terrified to eat by myself at lunchtime, but now, like, I call myself a networking ninja. I loved going to these events by myself and just sort of striking up conversation with people and learning, just learning about what they do. And I still go to them, even though I'm perfectly content in what I'm doing right now. I still go because it's just, yeah, I might be able to offer them something down the road or vice versa, so staying connected. Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, that's
Chamber
cool.
of Commerce.
No, that's good. I mean, that networking thing is
Yeah.
a big deal, and everybody will hear it on every show, every transition show
Yeah.
that we have. Everybody talks about it. That's how important it is. And you listen, I wasn't good at when I first started. I was,
I was terrible.
I was introverted a little bit, and just,
Yeah.
Here's something that I've also found to kind of piggyback on what you're saying. They're interested in what we have to say. But here's another thing that on that is, a lot of us feel like people are already judging us because we're in the military. So especially like, let's just say Army, Marines, they have stereotypes. So, they think, well, if it's a Marine, he's just crayon eating dude and he's no good. In the Army, he's just, an infantry jumping out of an airplane guy. And so we're afraid to open up sometimes, we as a service member, because we're afraid that we're getting prejudged already.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, because I felt the same thing. I'm here to tell you that it's not true. They're not, right. I'm not saying 100% or, they're not. Mostly they're not. Like, they want right. They appreciate what you do. They respect you for what you do. And they're willing to listen to whatever it is that you do and what values you bring. So it's okay to open up, and a little bit at a time. And then I'll throw a plug in for the LinkedIn algorithm. Yeah. Like, listen, like, it's a thing. Okay. And it really is a thing. And the simple part of it is engagement. Mm-hmm. So if you don't engage with more than likes, if you don't engage with comments with people, then your posts won't really show up. And then also your newsfeed will be very random. It will not have, some of them maybe more consistent people that you want to engage with. So no matter how many connections you get on there, you're probably not going to connect with more than 20 or so that are like
right.
really intimate connections. So when you start to find those intimate ones, those ones that you're like, oh, I want to stay connected to this person, whether for whatever reason, comment on their posts with thoughtful thoughts, engagement, and let the algorithm know that you care about that person's content, and then it'll help keep feeding that. And that's just one of the little tips with the networking, thing I had to learn too. I had no idea. Yeah. And, but yeah, the people aren't scared of us. They really do want to know, right. About us, and just keep talking to them. Just be honest and tell them who you are and, what you're about. So that's really, really important. I mean, really good stuff.
I would say too, I think senior level folks know this, and they do it pretty frequently. And I would challenge senior level folks to invite some of your junior folks with you to those events, and get them started early, regardless of what their, future is because, I tried to drag my guys a couple times to some of the events. And I think it's important for them to kind of, again, break outside that box and see that there is stuff outside of the military, and that they're all, like you said, there are people that are genuinely interested to hear what it is we're doing, what our plans are, so if you're a senior level person and you're going to those things, take some of your folks with you.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That would be amazing on a couple different levels.
Yeah.
Military, the senior person is showing them that they really care
right
about them in the future. And then, that would be really big. Good advice right there.
Yeah. What does Herb say, that like our best recruiters are people who left the service on a good note?
Yes.
Right? Doesn't he say something like that? Yeah.
And I believe it. I say it all the time. If somebody has a good transition, then we don't even need recruiters then.
Right.
They're going to go home and they're going to be like, yeah, the Army was great. The Coast Guard was awesome. Right. And instead, now we have so many people out there, they're just so negative towards it because they had a bad, transition. And there's a lot of things we've got to fix with that, but definitely some of the leaders have got to own it inside. And it's one challenge with that I get, like, listen, they haven't transitioned before either, but they've got to be willing to say, well, I don't know what it takes. So let me go find out and let me, help this junior soldier, or Coastie, like, do the right things and have access to these same resources at time. So, good stuff.
Yeah.
So, so you're working through these workshops, you're networking, you realize all those things are important. I want to talk about some of your financial planning toward, retiring. What was that like for you and your husband, your thought process? And, did you just have like, a couple weeks saved up? Did you have, other things, like, did you need to go to work right away? Because a lot of my teammates, they go to work on terminal leave. Like, they don't even take the whole terminal leave. And I'm like thinking, gosh, is that because you have to?
Right.
Or needed to? So, So if you don't mind sharing some of those thoughts and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. Before we even started thinking about retirement, like most folks in the military, and I'm sure I'm not stepping out of bounds by saying this, but most of us, despite what popular, belief, live paycheck to paycheck. And so around like 2012, I think is when it was, our command was offering a financial peace university session, the Dave Ramsey. And so, we're like, oh, we probably should, get our act together. And so we sat through the class, and it was sort of life-changing for us. And we're not religious, but, it like, in a religious way, it was life-changing for us. And we didn't adhere to all the things that Dave Ramsey kind of tells you to do, but we did a lot of them. And over time, so we paid off debt, and slowly but surely we found ourselves like being able to just pay cash for things, that sort of thing. And granted, again, I will caveat this by saying we don't have kids, and if we did, it would probably a completely different story. I might still be in the Coast Guard, but we throughout probably, a good portion of my career, we were a one income household, and so as we started to get closer to my retirement date, my husband went back to school. He was prior, so he had some of his GI Bill left to use. And so he went to school during the last 2 tours before I retired. And so it just sort of timing wise worked out that when I was going to be retiring, he was going to be, kind of getting out into the world doing his career. And so what we had planned, because of course, we all think we're going to get that job and keep working after retirement, and probably start working during terminal. And COVID happened. I don't have to explain that. So
No.
things did not work out exactly as planned for me. But what was nice is that we had already kind of set ourselves up for that just in case. So, ideally, plan A was I was going to get a really cushy job, after I retired, and we were going to take my retirement check and just pump it into, what it is, retirement. We were going to pump it into an account, my Roth or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that didn't happen, but what we had planned for was that, when my husband was getting ready to negotiate a salary and stuff, I said, okay, we figured out the numbers and we said, this is how much you have, at least that you're going to have to make per year to make up the difference so that we can live the same way we're living now. And so he was able to do that. And so we knew before any of the COVID stuff happened that, if I didn't for some reason get a job right away, that we would be okay financially. And so then COVID happened and it didn't work out the way that we thought. And
You didn't get the good cushy job?
Well, I do consider my job now to be good and cushy,
Right,
but it's
not the one that
yeah, right, exactly.
we
Yeah,
all assume, right?
exactly. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, so we, one of the TAPS classes I went through, they said, there's 3 things to look at when you're retiring or separating, when you're transitioning: job, location, and money. And they asked us to put those in, what's the highest priority. And for me, it was location, because we knew we wanted to stay here. So it didn't matter what the money was going to be, like you said in the beginning, yeah, sure, I could have gone to DC and probably, got that cushy, high stress job, and
Right.
but and now I'm, and I think I had said it in the beginning, sort of accidentally fell into this, position that I'm in now. And I don't think it was an accident. I think it was, the universe had had plans for me, and here I am, and I'm happy, and I'm stress free. And I couldn't have imagined this for myself. And my husband and I, he loves his job, and we pinch ourselves because we think like, gosh, how did we get here? And I get it. There's folks that can't, they're not in the same situations, but if you are early enough in this sort of process that you can set yourself up this way, then, then you don't have to worry about, those kind of things. And you can just do what you want to do. If you want to go be a lifeguard, or,
Mow grass at the golf course.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
or be a
whatever.
podcaster.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So maybe that'll be my next job.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of really good points here, and that I want to make for people. So the job you're in, I mean, essentially, to kind of connect some dots for the people. So during COVID, and the one job that you're on call for, you didn't have it full time, right, and you happened to walk into the store that you frequented often, and you liked the wildlife and stuff that they did, and they had a part-time hiring sign. Yes. And so you well, you weren't doing anything else, so you went right for it, and it's turned my mind at home. Right. So you kind of turned it into, it's still part-time, but it's something you're enjoying. You just said, yes, you love it, you're passionate about it. I've seen it, in your face and in your voice, and heard it in your voice today. It's, so to get to that, and that's one of the key things that I've really tried to stress with people with transition. And it goes to what you said, you've got to start early and really put in that time and that work to find out what it is that you want to do. And with the life coach that said, okay, you're good at this, you like this, and this is what's available, you find out where all those things come together. That can help. All kinds of different things help. But the financial, what's the word? Ability, flexibility, yes, to not have to take the high paying, high stress job is key. Yeah. And, you're right. you didn't have kids, and that does change things, but
Right.
I will still tell people you can do it too. It does take discipline, and it does take education and knowledge, meaning, first of all, accepting that you don't know everything about money.
Right.
And then the second part is going and being the dumbest person in the room and asking a million questions so that you can find out, which is awesome. And Dave Ramsey has some really great, concepts and ideas. One book I really love, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But there's a ton of them out there, and that can really help you, get to the point. And one of the main things I'll say, especially for the enlisted in the Army, is debt. Debt is a killer, and we have so much of it that when we do get out, even when we retire, it's like we have to go start working during terminal leave because we've got so much debt, whether it be $50,000 cars, personal loans, and all these things, and credit card debt out the wazoo. And that is the one thing that we definitely can't control. And we as a force have to get more educated on it, and we have to be better at managing our money. And I'm saying this because it's going to bring you peace.
Yes. Yeah.
You were saying that earlier, how you just felt like the relief, like the happiness, the peace of being able to pay cash for stuff, and you're not getting that interest on your credit card. That's why we're telling you all this. Like when you go to get out and retire, if you've got that financial flexibility to really actually go do what it is you want to do,
right.
It is so peaceful, and such an easy feeling. And I'll also kind of segue into, listen, we have a thing called Army or Emergency Relief Fund, AER. I don't like it. Okay. It's got millions of dollars in it. And every time a soldier goes because they need help or assistance to it, it's a loan. It's a 0% interest loan, but it's a loan.
Right.
Still, like 75% of them are all loans, and they actually make more money each year than they ever loan out or in grants, and they get the majority of it back because you can only your payout amount can only go out to your current contract, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to get their money back, and they should give out more grants, because we're talking a junior enlisted soldier that his transmission drops in his car. Okay. You're talking $1,000 or more to get it fixed. And if he's in a bind, if he can really show that he doesn't have the savings, or she or whatever, like, this help them. Like, that's what it's for. And we all the soldiers, they run a campaign every year. We donate money to it, to the program overall. So I would really like to see us as a service provide more grants, and you can attach stuff to it if you want, like counseling, and but we've got to do better with the counseling and with the educational part, like you were talking about. They brought in Dave Ramsey, other things like that. And then the leaders of these soldiers have got to understand the same language and the same stuff, and encourage it and help them. So that's not like, there's a lot of enlisted soldiers that, it's not cool to be financially savvy.
Right.
It's not cool to have a Roth IRA, so, but it may not be, but I'll tell you what is cool is when you go to retire or get out and you don't have to work.
Right.
Or you can go take that really cool part-time job
at the bird store.
At a bird store. See, that's exactly. Or you can go be a podcaster like I am right now. Like,
yes,
it's amazing. And I'll tell you, so we knew, a little ways out too, that like, I didn't have to go work when we had some opportunities, but we also made some sacrifices along the way to make sure that we could get to this point.
Yeah.
And we had a kid. We have a kid. Sorry, he's a freshman in college, and he has the GI Bill, doing some really cool things up there. But you've got to educate yourself, and then you've got to put in the work, and you've got to stay disciplined. And then that financial flexibility and freedom is so amazing, people. Like, it really is. So it's exciting to hear you share that part of your story. And Dave Ramsey is a really good one. So again, if I can just reiterate to anybody, debt, get rid of it.
Yeah.
That
was one of the sort of like pipe dreams we had, was to not have any debt other than our mortgage before I retired. And And we almost made it. We ended up, I needed a new car. Well, I didn't need a new car. I needed a car,
Sure.
a safe car.
Yeah.
And I, drove into the dealership on a flat tire in my 12-year-old Honda Civic, and they said, you can't leave with that vehicle. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Cars. Oh
oh
gosh.
God, I know.
Listen, I love them too. And I hate them. I love nice cars. I love new ones. I like all that stuff. But they're just one of the biggest suckers of debt, I
Yeah.
guess. It's just
Yeah.
even if the interest rates are low, and if you're reaching out and getting 6 and 7 year loans on your car, you probably can't afford it.
Right.
And I'm not trying to judge you. I'm not
Sure.
judging anybody's financial situation. I'm just saying, like, that's, but we got to have it. And then part of the income inequality thing we've been dealing with for really 10 years or more, if not longer, is, dude, the truck that I bought years ago is from 25,000. It's almost a $45,000 truck now. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's tough. So definitely, the cars, I mean, if you could get to the point where you're paying cash for a car, cool.
Oh gosh.
I'm not there yet either, but
No, we aren't either.
we're getting there though with
Yeah.
the one car that's paid off, and then the trade in, it has X number, and then we take X number of dollars of cash.
Yeah.
We're trying to get there, but anyway, it's really important. Service members, and I will say this too, like I get it. I understand, especially when you're deployed and you come home and you want to spend some cash, and you've had some tough times, you've been away from your family, you want to go blow some steam. I absolutely understand, and I'm not telling anybody not to live. I get it, and I just ask that you do some homework and do your research, and maybe help prepare you and your family so that when you get out, it's less stressful on you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Sacrifice a little. How does he say it? Live like no one else so you can live like no one else.
There you go. Absolutely. I mean, so yeah, it's really just a little bit of sacrifice here and there. It can help you out a long time. And that, it's really good stuff out there. So as you retire, you transition, and now you've got this job. So we really have kind of made the full circle. We started with where you are now. And of course you answered with, I never would have thought I'd be here.
Yeah.
But the things that you've done, throughout that transition to get you here, I mean, is really what's important. Your financial flexibility allowed you to do this and be okay. But also, you networked. And then when COVID hit and nobody wanted to hire you, you were okay. And then you had the opportunity to walk into the store, and now you're doing something that you really love, which is amazing. So you probably don't feel like you're working a day in your life.
Yeah. It's hard work, slinging 20-pound bags of seed,
Yeah, I don't want to do it.
I am not the young, E3 I used to be, many years ago.
Yeah, shoot, me neither. Me neither. And I, after crewing in a Blackhawk for so many years, my back is like, nope.
Yeah.
It ain't slinging 20-pound bags of seed
Yeah.
no more. In fact, I'll tip the guy handsomely when I ask him to bring it out to my truck for me. Like, I love the birds, and I live in a condo now downtown, but when we were in North Carolina, I had all the bird feeders. Nice. And I loved it. But like, would you mind please bringing them out to the car for me? Like, oh, okay. And I'll take care of them. But so that's good. All right. So if you had to give, and I'll just throw the number out there, it can be more or less, but three, your top 3 resources, like what would you like people to make sure they look into and do when they're working through their transition?
Okay. So go to TAPS as many times as you can, or that you're able. That was a big thing. Network outside of your military bubble if you can. And this next one I'm going to mention will help you do that. Join different organizations that you're interested in, whether they be local, national, or international. Get involved. A lot of times as we grow up through the service, we, we're evaluated on our community, presence. At least I know in the Coast Guard we are. I'm sure all the other branches are. And so, don't take those opportunities for granted. Get involved with, if you're interested in, my background's environmental. And so I started looking at all the different environmental organizations. A lot of them will let you join for free when you're on active duty. So get involved with those organizations, because that's an easy way to network, because it's people that are like-minded and people that are interested in the same things you're interested in. And that could potentially, lead you to that passion job or that hobby job that you didn't realize was out there waiting for you. So, and I wanted to add kind of some of the things I wish I had done, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
So I wish I had gotten more certifications, like outside certifications. I did my schooling later on. And so I, as I got closer to retirement, I started working on my PMP and stuff like that, but ended up, now I'm like looking at certifications and like, oh man, I wish I had done that a while back. I wish I had given even a dollar of my GI Bill to my husband, even though he was eligible for his own. He used it for his undergrad and exhausted all of it. I used tuition assistance for my undergrad, and then used part of my GI Bill for my grad school stuff. And I still have 22 months left. And I really, I'm not going to go get a PhD. I mean, I don't think anyway. So I wish I had thought about it and given him some of mine so that he could go on and do a master's degree with what's left over. So, but I didn't have enough time to, once I came to the realization that I should have given to him, or part of it to him.
I want to interrupt because
sure.
That's a great point. And here's another financial aspect of that right there. So the post 9/11 GI Bill, when it gives the person the stipend, okay, but only if they use it, like if you're not in the Army.
Right.
Or service, I should say. Okay. So if you're active duty and you had given it all to your husband, obviously, I mean, you do what's best for your family. He could use it to pay for his school, but he wouldn't get the stipend. If your husband uses it after you retired, then he would get the stipend on top of that. So again, I'm not saying you wait till you get out to use it for that reason, but it's just something for people to learn and understand.
Yeah.
And then also go back to starting this process early enough to where you may want to transfer your GI Bill, and you have to do so many months afterwards once you do that.
Yeah.
So I made sure I transferred mine well before my 16-year mark, I think is what it was, because you had to do like 4 extra years, right? So that's great. That's excellent. I mean, tip right there. And things you wish you could have done. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So go ahead.
And then the last one would just be, I wish I had been better about getting my medical stuff on paper, going in and making sure things were documented, rather than waiting till the very end, to get my aches and pains and things like that documented in my medical records. So, don't be afraid to go to the doctor, and get it put on paper.
Yes.
Because if it's not there, it didn't happen.
It's not there. It didn't happen. This message is for two people. This is for the service member and the leader. Service member, don't be scared to go. Get over to sick call, get it documented every time. Leader, do not disencourage, I can't think of the right word. Do not encourage them to not go.
Right.
Do not say, you're weak if you go. We don't have time for you to go to sick call because after your appointment, you won't be able to get to this class and you'll have to redo it. And then first sergeant's going to be upset at me. No. Leaders, take care of your people. This is what it's about. Get them there, because listen, I understand you don't care about them when they get out. Okay. But somebody needs to, and every ache and pain has got to be documented. It absolutely does. And here's another thing, Army people, I'll tell you, there's this rumor that says you will not get compensated for hearing loss by the VA. I'm proof right here to tell you, I didn't even apply for it because I didn't know, but I got 10% because hearing loss. And I wear my earplugs, but the whole rumor in the Army is, we issue earplugs so you'll never get compensated for hearing loss. So it's wrong. So make sure you document all of that. So absolutely. I mean, I can't stress that enough either. Go. You deserve it. What we do every day is tough on our bodies and our minds. Mm-hmm. And we need to go get it all documented to include the mental health part.
Right.
It doesn't, listen, things affect people differently, and nobody is weaker than somebody else because something affected them differently. And if they just need to go talk to somebody, they need to go talk to somebody. One, we need to have the courage to do it ourselves. And two, leaders, again, we need to take care of our people and encourage them to get there. Those junior NCOs, see, you're going to get me on a tangent here. Those junior leaders, and for us, it's our E5s that are in charge of about 4 to 5 people. I'm not sure where that is in your, rank structure, but they're the first leader. They're the first one that's really, they know those people they're in charge of. They spend the most time with them. That person, you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. I get that. I understand. But one of them, when we say taking care of your soldiers, well, what do you mean take care of them? It's knowing when they have financial problems and getting them to the right people, like you were saying earlier. If they have physical problems, making sure they get to the doctor and they feel comfortable going. If you're thinking they're having a hard time because of either financial or breakup or PTSD or anything, make sure they get to the right people and encourage them to do so and support it. And then you take the rest of the team and you're like, hey, we're down one today. It's okay. They've got stuff they've got to take care of. The rest of us, we're going to pick up a little bit more of the slack today. And it's okay. And we support that person, and that person will be back on the team the next day or whenever. All right, let's go. That's what we need to do to take care of our people. And we're not doing it enough at every level. And so it's fired up.
Intrusive leadership. That was a term we used a lot during the shutdown, when DHS wasn't getting paid, and I reached out to some of my mentors and was like, how am I supposed to, how am I supposed to help my guys when, I don't even know how to help myself right now. And he said, intrusive leadership. You just gotta be on the lookout for it, and don't be afraid to, as leaders, we have to get out there and ask those hard questions from our folks, because if we don't, who's going to,
Nobody.
And then, right. So
nobody. And this is another thing we do poorly in the Army. And I've called it out on this, and I've tried to offer solutions and stuff, but listen, so that intrusive leader, most people are afraid of it. They hate it, especially the junior soldiers. They hate it because we execute it wrong. It's not that intrusive leadership is a bad thing. It's because we execute it wrong. So the NCO comes at it in the wrong, knife hand, attitude, and or the junior NCO doesn't know not even the answers, but the resources to get them to. So they're like, why do you care that I have some debt? Why do you? And some of them don't know why they care. They were just told by their boss to go check and see what it is. So we have to do a better job as a organization of teaching, how to be an intrusive leader and an effective intrusive leader, and show that you care and not be, a jerk. Right. And so, we've got to do better at that, because then they'll open up to us. They'll be more comfortable with telling us their issues, their challenges, their problems, and then we can get them the help that they need. Yeah. And then we can be a better team because of it. Right. All the way around. I mean, so it's a win-win, right? Right. And we know, listen, the military, I say this tongue in cheek, doesn't care about us unless we're completing the mission. But essentially, like, listen, they want us to make sure we're completing the mission. So if they've got to do some things to make sure we get there to complete the mission, they'll take care of it. So it's good stuff. I mean, that's really good point, Michelle. All right. So one last thing, if there's anything we missed, and I know that there is, that's something we need to talk about. And it goes bzzz, something like that. So is there something really cool and exciting that you want to share with our listeners?
Yes. Well, and I would say that this kind of ties into the retirement or transition discussion too, because, hobbies, right? Yeah. What are your hobbies? Because they could potentially lead to lucrative, work later on. My husband and I are beekeepers. and we've been beekeepers for about 8 years now.
Very cool.
And we are mentors through a program called Hives for Heroes. And what they do is they pair up veterans with beekeepers who've been doing beekeeping for about 3 years or more. And basically the whole goal is to kind of just take veterans and show them sort of the art of beekeeping and what it could bring, opportunities it could bring in terms of business, a business model. And then also the Hives for Heroes sort of mission statement is save bees, save vets. There's been a lot of recent studies that show that beekeeping helps with mental health and PTSD. And so, part of it is what Hives for Heroes looks at is it's a way to prevent suicide with our veterans. And so my husband and I are mentors through that program. If you're interested in it, check it out. They'll pair you up with somebody in your area. And if you're in the Yorktown or Hampton Roads area, be happy to take you on as a mentee. But yeah, it's a really great program. And there's other programs out there. I know you mentioned the one there in Atlanta. And then there's the VA has a couple of programs as well. In fact, VA centers, there's certain VA centers. I know the one in New Hampshire does an apiary program. So something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go, people. The VA even will teach you how to be a beekeeper.
Right.
Okay. So the VA is not all bad. No, it's gotten better.
Yeah.
But now Hives for Heroes, I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I don't think they'll let me have it here in my condo. But
rooftop.
Yeah,
you could do a rooftop.
it's right above us, have it next to the pool,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really cool. And I have heard of it before. So when you said you wanted to mention it, so I'm like, yes, like that is so cool. When the studies that showed that it does help, some veterans with PTSD, there's some business opportunities,
yep.
Along with this. So there's a lot of really good things to come out of this program. And I think it's amazing. And listen, if anybody has paid any attention to anything in the world about, the environment and stuff, we need the bees.
Yeah.
Okay. We need some more bees, and we need, them to make some honey, and we need them to pollinate, everything, because without them, we have nothing, so it's a great thing for the environment, great thing for the individual, on many levels, maybe able to improve their mental health. It gives them that purpose. We didn't talk about that much today, but a lot of times when you are looking for what it is that you want to do when you grow up, when you leave the military, and you got to find that purpose for yourself.
Yeah.
And this can be that.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. I think my uncle, I'm going to see him in a couple of days. When this episode airs, I will have already seen him, but he just started a beekeeping about a year ago.
Nice.
So I'm excited to go up there and see how that's turning out. So yeah, veterans. All right. Again, all this stuff is going to be on the website, millersmilitarymoments.com. If you haven't found me out there yet, that's where I am, millersmilitarymoments.com. And, the blog post will have, Michelle's episode, and then all of the links to the different things, all the different things that we've mentioned today. So we'll have a link up there for Hives for Heroes too. And it'd be really cool. And so is it okay for veterans to connect with you, Michelle, on LinkedIn?
Please do. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be happy. I whatever I can do to help.
Awesome. I knew you would say yes. And really, because we've connected quite a bit on LinkedIn, and really anybody that's willing to come on the show and share their story, I know you're willing to connect, which is really awesome. Absolutely. And there's so many of us that are here that are fresh in the retirement phase, that we have this information to share with each other, and we're willing to pay it forward. And so please, connect with Michelle, connect with myself. I don't have all the answers, but I have a network that I know I'll be like, hey, Michelle, can you help me up in, Hampton Roads? This person needs, and you can figure it out.
Yeah,
do you know
absolutely.
Tyrone Hewitt?
I don't think I do.
So I only know him on LinkedIn, but he's big in Hampton Roads. He retired.
Maybe I need to know him.
Retired Navy, and he's really big on LinkedIn as far as like transitioning and VA stuff. And he's like one of my go-to, like, hey, what's the answer to this, or where do I find this? And so he's really awesome. I just didn't know if y'all had a chance. That's
No,
interesting
but
because LinkedIn is so big.
Yeah.
Hampton Roads is kind of small, but there's a lot of people there. So
Yeah.
he's a good guy. But yeah, so absolutely. Well, cool. We'll have your LinkedIn information on the website too, so that they can, connect with you. And then, if they have any issues or questions or challenges. And I think, another unique angle today is the connections that you made with some of the women that, have either served or have been out as well. And y'all have maybe certain unique challenges too, that are different. And in our society, we've talked a lot about in years past, the income inequality and the not making the same amount as your male counterpart. So trying to overcome some of those things can be challenging when you're trying to explain the value that you bring to a company and stuff. So I think connecting to some of those women that have gone through is really valuable for other women.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, so that'll be great for them to be able to connect to you. I have a friend that she's getting ready to retire. I think she's less than 12 months now. So I think she's at 11. Oh. She's a CW4 pilot down in Alabama.
Nice.
So maybe she'll connect with you.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So, but yeah. Okay. Well, cool. We'll have all that information up there. And, again, thanks so much for coming on the show today and sharing your transition story, willing to pay it forward and help others. Like, that's really amazing. And I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. So thanks again for tuning in to, yet another really great episode of Miller's Military Moments. Here our mission is bringing unfiltered stories from real military members, whether it be their stories of service, stories of transition. We've got all kinds of things going on. So thank you so much for tuning in. It's a great opportunity for you all to learn about our military members in many different ways. And so thanks again for tuning in and, supporting the show. We've got a lot going on, but yeah, if you haven't, found me, millersmilitarymoments.com is the best place to find me. All my social links are on there. You can also listen to every episode right from the website. And then there's videos from my past deployments and training exercises. Some are cool and funny. Soldiers do some silly things sometimes. So there's some videos on there. There's my favorite thing is the resources page, though. It's got my favorite veteran owned businesses on there that they're not paid advertisements. They're ones that I trust and believe and support. And so they're on there. And then there's my favorite podcasts, and then also VA resources or veteran resources, not just VA, veteran resources. There are transition resources, there are job resources, there are all kinds of things. So you can go right on there and have the links to go to those places and, hopefully, answer some questions you have, or you can just connect with any of us. So check the website out and, hope everybody's staying safe out there. Hopefully New Orleans is recovering. By the time this episode is out there's probably been a few weeks gone by, and I hope that everybody's safe and doing well down there. And so as always, be kind, be compassionate, and be you. Until next time, peace.